Tomorrow's Petit Le Mans will be 10 hours of sim racing extravaganza. It'll be live here on Racespot TV. But just to get you in the mood, we've got this coming up here on Road Atlanta. Round 2 of Season 4 of the 2016 iRacing Blancpain Sprint Series coming up after these short messages on iRacing Live and Racespot TV. Back in 2. Welcome to round 2 of Season 4 of the 2016 iRacing Blancpain Sprint Series. This is one of the most popular championships in iRacing at the moment, and of course it's been running all week long, but here we had the elite of the elite running here on Friday night prime time on Racespot TV and iRacing Live. Road Atlanta, of course, is situated in Braselton, Georgia, just north of Braselton, Georgia, one of the best US road courses in the country, and boy, it's going to be an absolutely amazing spectacle. Frederick Rasmussen comes in on form. He was the one that won the race, the opening round last time at Nürburgring, and it's going to be surely a fantastic spectacle. Scott Wood was here alongside Randy Chenworth with Hugo Luis on cameras, and Randy, after the first opening round, of course, at the Nürburgring, it really did set the tone, hopefully, for what should be another cracking season. Road Atlanta will only make it better.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the first race last week at the Nürburgring was immense, but I think the rest of the championship and this race in particular is going to be even better. The thing to remember from last week, about half of our field here actually was at the Sim Racing Expo at the Nürburgring, so they actually weren't home, didn't take part in the official series race on that Friday night. Here, though, names that were at the Sim Racing Expo that was happening at the Blancpain round at the Nürburgring are actually here tonight, and there are some big names amongst that list.
Oh, you are not kidding. Look at some of the drivers in this field. We've got Matt Backham, Andrea Rodriguez is back in there, Dave Geeling, Alexander Minaya is in here. We know how quick he is in a GT3 car on iRacing. Ade Koba Lopez, one of the top guys from the iRacing European MX5 Cup. He almost got the chance to go and race an MX5 Cup car for real recently at the Invitational at Laguna Seca. Isaac Price, World Championship Grand Prix driver in here, as is Sebastiano Filosa. Yoni Tarkin in here too, Ricardo Ferreira, Timo Ivanen, tons and tons of top drivers. It is only the second round, but already with an entry list like this, Randy, it could potentially be shaping up, and I hope it's not an anticlimax, to one of the best races of the season. I hope it lives up to its potential.
Oh, I mean, it's really hard to predict whether or not this is going to be the best race of the season or not. I mean, there are a lot of rounds still left to go, and we're getting World Championship caliber drivers every single race. Most of our Friday night prime races that we've done, and even a lot of the other series, we might see a handful, 2 to 3 of them, maybe up to 5 is I think the most I've usually ever seen. But everyone I think in this grid right now, with the exception of a few people, have black stripes.
And I'll tell you something, we're in qualifying right now. It's an 8-minute session, just a couple of minutes rounding out to go. I don't think anywhere, whether it's potentially, circuit racing or sim racing at all, I have never seen a qualifying session this close. I mean, you want an idea just how close it is? Effectively, the top, there's 29 cars in this field. The top 28 are covered by less than 1 second. It is that damn close. The top 10 is covered by less than, just over 0.2 of a second. That is how close and how fine the margins are here at a circuit like Road Atlanta, where there's with so many sweeps and dips, so many undulations, so many corners to potentially catch yourself out, so many high curbs, that with a field this high caliber, these guys really cannot afford to take any measures. These guys are going to be going all out for the next 40 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, there's several places up and down your field right now where the difference between being in one position or another is just a few hundredths of a second, if not thousandths of a second, and qualifying at Road Atlanta is always close. I, in particular, remember a Neo race at Road Atlanta where the entirety of a GT2 field, I think it was 13 cars. Difference between first to last and pre-qualifying was half of a second, and the difference between being in and being out of that race was a thousandth. I, of course, got to sit out that run being a little bit too slow, but this track is always immense and always puts on great racing.
Well, we told you it was close in the grid. Let's show you exactly how they're going to line up for round 2 of Season 4 of the 2016 iRacing Blancpain Sprint Series. Riccardo Castrodiedo takes pole position from Race 1 winner Frederick Rasmussen. Second row of the grid, Dennis Grabowski and Mikko Melkila. Then we've got Matt Backham on row 3 alongside Andrea Rodriguez, Riley Preston and Dave Geeling on row 4 ahead of Timo Even and Alexander Monet rounding out the top 10. Adi Lopez and Isaac Price. What a 6th row that is from Ricardo Silva and Renz Brookman. Then Ricardo Ferreira, Joni Tarkkanen, Sebastiano Filosa, Zach Thomas, Dadio Opachak and Antti Piala rounding out the top 20. And even then, with that, how close that is, I mean, again, look at how close the times are. That's less than 0.4 of a second between the top 20. I mean, trying to pick a winner from this grid as the rest of the field scrolls on your screen. Trying to pick a winner from this grid, I think, is practically nigh on impossible. There's so much stacked talent here. No bets are safe here. None at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to take a pick of any one of these guys. Really, I mean, in amongst your top 10 and even some of the names outside of the top 10, people like Renz Brookman, Isaac Price as well, you're talking a lot of talent in GT cars in those 2 names alone. And, I mean, this is going to be an immense race. And the other thing to talk about is, of course, the 4 different manufacturers we have here. Or, 5 different manufacturers. I think we only see 4 of the cars, though. I don't see a Ford GT at any point up and down the field. And, I mean, the BMWs, we know, struggle for top end. And while they definitely qualified strong, you got Fred up there on 2nd place in a BMW, they tend to lack the power in the top end. That's going to make it mighty difficult for people like Fred, Renz, and Isaac Price to be able to make passes and be able to defend and going down that long back straightaway into that chicane.
29-car field now heads its way off onto its first reconnaissance lap of the Road Atlanta circuit. Of course, this circuit as well, looking at some of the length of the course, 2.54 miles, 12 turns. Looking at some of the information for this race, of course, looking at how it's looking. 72 degrees Fahrenheit air temperature, 101 degrees Fahrenheit track temperature, winds northeasterly at about 7 miles per hour, race humidity 49, and 29 inches of HG rising in that mix as well. We're going to talk about a couple of things. First of all, strategy. These guys are only going to be pitting for fuel, not for tyres. We're expecting them to come in at around the 18-minute mark at this point, so that should be pretty intriguing on that side. The second part as well, of course, this is a circuit round that, if you look at it in some context, layout and also the structure of the undulation changes, etc., and the corners, it's not too dissimilar to the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit we saw last week. So potentially, we could see a repeat form in terms of the cars that are strong here. Audis and McLarens in particular, do you think?
Maybe, but I think there's enough downforce here. There's a lot more high-speed downforce sections where the BMWs can really be quick. We didn't see a lot of fast BMWs last week at the Nürburgring, but here already there's, I think, 2 of them amongst your top 5 with Frederick Rasmussen as well as Matt Backham there and the new Coanda driver, now that's been announced after I spoiled the party last week. But I think this will be better for BOP. You have the long straights for the McLarens to be good, as well as the Audis, but you have the high downforce corners like the final corner, turn 1, and the entirety of the S's for cars like your BMW and your Mercedes to be strong as well.
Just correct myself, it was lap 18, not 18 minutes for the pit stops, so already a blunder already before the race has even started. So, onto the back straight, they'll come down towards turns 10A and 10B. Very crucial braking zone, of course, for these very high-speed GT cars. All the downforce will certainly help. Of course, you'll be looking. Exactly who's driving what. Riccardo Castrodiedo is the Audi on the outside. He'll be on the inside of the front row of the grid on pole position. Frederick Rasmussen has switched now to a BMW for this round, but of course alongside him, of course, will be Dennis Grabowski in the McLaren, and then Mikko Melkila will be in the Audi as well. Safety car is about to pull off, and we're going to get 40 minutes of racing underway. Round 2 of the iRacing Blancpain Sprint Series for Season 4 is going to get started any moment now. Green flag flies in the air. Rasmussen leads him across the Cassia the air leads him across the line, and we are underway and racing up towards turn 1 for the first time. Rasmussen has Grabowski to the inside with Melkiller holding back in 4th position. Up the hill they go for the first time. Looks to be relatively clean. Matt Backham sitting back in 5th, and the VRS Coanda BMW clouting over the curbs as they hit the crest of the rise, and they start to swoop their way down through the very fast switches left and right, then to the top of the hill where they use all the curb on the outside. So far it seems the first few cars, Randy, pretty clean start, but again anything can happen, these guys. But so far Iedo leading from pole.
Everything clean thus far as we lead the S's. I don't see a single car that's spun around. No one's in the pits yet. I think everyone's made it through the first half of a lap here at Road Atlanta. Joel Guez does have a good bit of damage, but he looks to be going strong. There's a little bit of tapping as you come on the long back straightaway, and Joel actually does get pushed off to the outside of the circuit, but I think for the most part everyone survives the first half of lap 1.
Down the back straight towards turn A and turn B. Already Rasmussen under attack from Grabowski. The McLaren heading to the inside under braking. BMW hasn't got any defence, and there goes Grabowski then, car number 14 into P2. Up over the crest, underneath the Suzuki bridge for the first time. It will be Riccardo Castro-Nieto in the number 12 Audi that will lead him across the line. He leads lap 1. Grabowski in 2nd place. Rasmussen will be 3rd. Melkiller 4th. Matt Backham in 5th. Andrea Rodriguez 6th. Not too many changes in the top 10 position-wise. Riley Preston still 7th. From Dave Geelig, Timu Ivanen, and then Alexander Manea only 10th, with Adi Koba Lopez and Isaac Price sticking 11th and 12th. At this early stage, everyone electing to stay pretty much single file, Randy. Not too many position changes, not too many movers and shakers in the order, despite where they started.
Yeah, in a strength of field like this, everyone is very smart, and they know that you're not going to win this race in lap 1, turn 1. They know you're going to lose the race on lap 1, if anything. I mean, this is nearly a 6,000 soft here tonight on Friday night, and I mean, there's a lot of talent, a lot of smart racing up amongst this field.
Out onto the back straight for the second time, watching some of the guys working their way through onto this long straight. Slipstream is going to be at a premium down here, as we saw with Grabowski getting a move on Rasmussen. Looks like Timu Ivanen could be coming under attack, it seems. He is in the 9th placed McLaren, coming under attack by Alexander Manea, car number 15. The Audi R8 just in the mix as well. That's towards the bottom end of the top turns. They charge back towards the chicane. Manea looks to the outside for the first part of the chicane. Can't get the switch back on the second. And now he falls potentially into the clutches of number 3, Adi Koba Lopez, also in an Audi. And also watch out for Isaac Price just behind them in the BMW, number 9. He's in 12th position. This is a very strong field below the top 10, some really top drivers in there. But so far it seems Iedo has got the measure of the field. He leads by 0.6 seconds. Meanwhile, Melkiller is holding station in 4th, just behind him. But Matt Backham looking pretty racy in the BMW in his 2nd race for Coanda.
Yeah, he's looking very strong at the moment, just doing a good job just maintaining position. He hasn't really dropped down, which we've seen a lot of the BMWs have already done so, losing out to those Audis or even McLarens on that long back straightaway on the braking and the chicane as we're now working lap number 3. Things you're going to need to watch for the BMW, though, yes, as well as the Mercedes, actually, in fact. Yes, those two cars, they don't have the top end, but they tend to hold the pace over a run better than the Audi or the McLaren do. So while they may not have the outright pace just yet, the Audi and Mercedes should last a little bit longer on those tires. And while pit stops are going to be cycling through, these guys won't be taking tires at all. It's just going to be a pit stop for fuel. So all these BMWs, even though they might be struggling now, they might be strong later on in the race. Right now, though, Isaac Price on the inside of Riccardo Silva. This is Isaac defending, and look at the top end of that Audi. He's able to basically get clear before they're ever under braking. Even before they're in the corner, that Audi of Riccardo Silva, that 27, he's already clear and already through.
Looks as though that Isaac's lost a little bit of time as he comes back up the inside of Riccardo Silva through the final corner.
Excuse me, Zach Thomas.
It's actually Zach Thomas as they head through the mix as well. So Isaac Price has dropped from what was about 12th down to 15th. But we've got a car in pit lane, it seems, tumbling down the order. Who's got that's Antonio Sebastiano Filosa, in fact. So Filosa is becoming to some strife here. He's actually in pit lane, looks at potentially repairing some damage. So that's his race pretty much finished by this point. But back to the front though, Riccardo Castro-Niedo's lead is down from 0.6 to virtually nothing because Denis Grabowski is going with the Audi in front and he's bringing Frederick Rasmussen et al. Behind him into the mix. So top 3 trying to make a breakaway at this early point as they head back onto the back straight for this the 4th time, and a good run from Rasmussen off the back of that corner onto the back straight sees him in the tow, potentially looking for a move to try and repass Grabowski at exactly the same place he took 2nd place a lap ago. This could be a simple good move here. The BMW so far working pretty well around Road Atlanta so far, Randy.
Yeah, it's working well, but it's going to be a pretty big move from Fred, I think, especially to get that move done into that chicane. The McLaren is the fastest car in a straight line amongst this GT3 group. The BMW is the slowest, so generally if you're going to get around one of those McLarens, it's not going to be on the back end of one of the longest straightaways on the circuit. I honestly think Fred's best passing opportunity is going to be going into somewhere like turn 1, into turn 3, maybe even turn 6, that right-hander. There's 2 right-handers, the first of the 2 right-handers that come before that back straightaway. You see Fred very close up into 3, but it's a very, very narrow bit of track. It's going to have to be an aggressive move from that BMW behind to be able to make a move on that teal McLaren.
Rasmussen is looking very racy indeed. He loves this winding section here. The BMW is fantastic on downforce, which is a circuit where, especially in that first sector, it really does work out well. He's got a fantastic run off the corner of 5 up towards the double apex right-handers of 6 and 7, earning their way through the first part of the right hand and then just stand on the brakes and shift it down to almost first gear. 55 miles an hour on the apex. Back on the power once again and onto the red. A little bit wide there from behind for 4th place Mika Melkila, the number 20 Audi. He's still coming under pressure from Matt Backham and also Andrea Rodriguez. Rest of the top 10 is Riley Preston in 7th, Dave Geelink in 8th from Timo Eben and Alexander
Here comes Dennis.
Minaya.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but Dennis on the outside of Ricardo Castroleta going hard onto the brakes down in the chicane, and that's going to give us a new leader, I think, here, Scott. Dennis Grabowski of Curb Surfers, he has that lead position. Will he hold it as they come now down through corners 11 and 12?
Well, that was a great pass indeed. Fantastic move from Grabowski. He will lead across the line here at the end of lap number 6 then. But here comes Rasmussen for 2nd place on the inside of the Audi, potentially into turn 1. Viedo has to give him the room, and that's P2 for the BMW. Now is he going to come under attack now, potentially lose a 3rd place because Mika Melkila is coming into the mix, and almost it seems that now Viedo is struggling for some reason because here comes Matt Backham also in the number 5 BMW. He looks himself to try and get past Melkila as they tumble down the hill and climb back up towards the apex of turn 5. Heading their way through up towards turn 6 at the end of the straight, and Rasmussen now has got designs on the lead. He wants to try and go with Grabowski. It may be significantly faster in a straight line, but Rasmussen is taking full advantage of the fact that this BMW is mighty in the corners. If he can get a fantastic run onto the straight, he may well possibly negate that straight line advantage with the tow. Down towards turn A and 10B they go, but Grabowski's got his foot down, and for the moment looks as though Rasmussen's staying with him, but doesn't ultimately have an answer on the straights.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any way Fred's going to be able to reel in that McLaren in front and be able to make the pass as they go down into the chicane for the 6th time here tonight. And that was a great move by Fred, though, to inherit that 2nd position, a very aggressive move that he had to get done. That's one of the things about the BMW. A lot of people like to see that as the sort of patient person's car, but there's points when there's an opportunity presents itself, you have to make the aggressive move to go for it. Fred did a splendid job getting that move done. Looking back at Ricardo Castroleta, though, question marks on how well he's able to run here. We know that Ricardo is always very quick in qualifying, but something Ricardo always seems to fall short in is his race pace. He tends to be blindingly quick, but he can fall off, especially if that Audi is right on the ragged edge in terms of setup. We've seen him always be fast in these big strength of fields, but he always seems to fall a little bit short in the big grids.
We'll keep an eye on the leaders, but also want to keep your attention to the battle for 5th that's going on. There has been a change. Andrea Rodriguez is past Matt Backham for P5 in the number 10 Audi. He's now still coming under pressure from the VRS Commander Sim Racing driver, and also in the mix as well in there is Riley Preston in the number 17 Audi also. So watch out for these two as they head down the back straight once again. The move actually happened roughly around a lap ago into the chicane. Around the outside went Rodriguez, and that was the move done and dusted. Meanwhile, back towards the front, the top 3 are trying to pull away a little bit more. It's McLaren from BMW from Audi into the chicane now for the 7th time here at Road Atlanta. Of course, the 2nd round of the iRacing Blancpain Sprint Series before we get to the Petit Le Mans. 10 hours of sim racing tomorrow afternoon starting at 1:30 PM GMT. You can watch that live on iRacing and Racebot TV. Meanwhile, here comes Rasmussen for the lead into turn 1. He gives Grabowski all the room he needs. New leader, lead change then for Rasmussen. Will he hold it on the apex because Grabowski goes for the undercut? He may squeeze alongside into turns 2 and 3. He's almost got some room. Rasmussen goes round the outside, says, Dennis, ain't going to work. And that is now the third leader in the space of 8 laps in this race here at Road Atlanta. It was Iedo leading from the start, then Rasmussen for a couple of laps, Grabowski for a couple of laps. Now Rasmussen hits the front, and potentially can he try and get away unless the McLaren has got enough in a straight line to reel him back in.
I think Fred's going to be a sitting duck here once they come out of turn 7 down this long back straightaway, because that McLaren, I mean, Fred can't reel the McLaren in with a draft, and now that McLaren's going to have a draft, but Dennis behind, he got loose on the exit of corner number 7. Will that hurt him enough that Fred will be able to hold on to it? If Fred's able to hold on, he might be able to run away just long enough, but here comes that McLaren. Look at the speed, is 6, 7, 8 miles an hour quicker at this point. Dennis will go for a move, definitely, but where will Fred defend? It'll be down to the outside, and Dennis down to the outside, and he turns across, a little bit of contact. Dennis gets gets a big bump, and is he going to get cycled down? They're going to be practically 3 wide as they come under the bridge. Now holding on for second is Grabowski on the inside.
Correct me if I'm wrong, it didn't look as though there was too much contact to me, but Iedo's now on the outside now trying to defend from Grabowski as they come back up towards turn 1. Also side by side now Rodriguez trying to get himself around Mel Killer. Also trying to throw themselves into the mix. Matt Backham and Riley Preston. Look at this pack. They're absolutely squabbling hand over fist. It's Castrolero, Grabowski and Mel Killer, Rodriguez, Backham and Preston. The 6 of them battling over second place. Meanwhile, Frederick Rasmussen says, battle amongst yourselves, boys. I'm checking out in the lead. He was ahead by 1.1 seconds. And if they continue to scrap, he's going to take full advantage of that and negate the straight line advantage the McLaren has, because they're going to be so basically battling amongst each other they won't even notice he's getting away.
But the hard part right now for Dennis and all these McLarens out here is that the Audi is also very good in a straight line, but I think the big beneficiary right now is look at that lead gap. It's up to 1.1 seconds for Frederick Rasmussen just with the way they've been fighting behind, and has definitely grown over the course of this run. Frederick Rasmussen, that one pass going into corner number 1, got in the lead. A good defensive move kept the lead, and now that they've been all squawking over that second position behind, he's going to keep it. They're nearly 3 wide on the brakes for second.
Into turn A and turn B, Grabowski keeps the line. He can't let Castrolero get through, so he remains in second position. Grabowski now still third. So in second, it's now Iedo third. Nokila fourth. Rodriguez is holding on to 5th, but monstering the back of the fellow Audi in front of him. Still P6 is Matt Back and Riley Preston still 7th, but the pack behind them also really getting themselves into the mix at this point. Dave Geelink is still staying strong in 8th in the McLaren. And then we've got Alexander Manea up to 9th and Adikoba Lopez up to 10th. The man that's been shuffled out as a result of that then. Timo Ivonen, but he's still on the tail of this pack here for 11th place. Ricardo Silva's in the mix there as well, as is Joni Tarkin in the one of the lone Mercedes in the field here. He's the highest placed Silver Arrow in 13th as they head back up through turn 5 once again. But look at the train of cars from second down to about 13th, 14th place. It is simply incredible to see a GT3 race like this so close and so competitive. We predicted it could be an absolute barnstormer.
Oh, there goes Ricardo. Ricardo's around in third. He's going to drop all the way down your field. Sound like there might be other contact. No, I think that was him scraping the wall. And that was just an unforced error for Ricardo. We talked about it. We know he's quick, but he lacks consistency. He made a little bit of mistake, put 2 wheels off on the grass, got hard on the brakes, and because of that, he goes around. And that's going to stack up the field as they go down the back straight.
Yeah, just trail braking into what was turn 7, and just got missed by Melkilo as he came through very, very close indeed. Great reactions by Miko to not make contact. But yes, that is now Iedo, who started from pole position. His race is simply going from worse to worse. He's now found himself in between. We'll have to see exactly who he's in front of now. It's Luigi Nespolina, so he's all the way back down to about 18th or 19th position. Let's see how it shakes out across the line. He's 18th. So 19th, sorry, 12.5 seconds off the lead. So a lot of work now to do in the remainder of this race now for Ricardo Castrolero now back in the pack now. Meanwhile, just in front, I think that was some more passing. I think Joni Tarkinen was having a great scrap, or at least a couple of cars behind him at least were. Let's see what's going on here. We've got Renz Brookman, Zach Thomas, and also in the mix, I think Pat Jack is in there too. They're scrapping over 14th, 15th and 16th. Antti Piala's in there too as well. They're also scrapping in front as well. I can see as Timo Ivanen's got Adikoba Lopez around him. Ricardo Silva's in there as well. And also Riley Preston. They're all scrapping over each other. They're falling over into each other, trying to get a move done. But of course, the more they fight each other, the more they're going to lose time to the cars around them. It's fantastic to watch, but it won't be helpful and also frustrating for the guys that are right in the thick of it.
Yeah, and not to mention when they're all stacked up like they are, as they're starting to get themselves slightly spread out a little bit here, as Isaac Price and Rens Broken working down now into that chicane. The thing is that anything that happens at the front of the pack will affect those in the back of the pack almost immediately, as they're stacked up as they are. So you can be going to make a move, try to happen, but the cars in front of you, they may mess up just a little bit, and that might stack the field up, but suddenly you go from making a pass to getting freight train because you have to make a move, avoiding a possible incident that would have happened otherwise. Isaac Price, though, doing very well in this BMW behind. He's down a couple spots. Rens Broekman, though, pressuring him a lot. He's running where he started in 14th place. Interesting to see Rens down so far down the order. What's also interesting to me is the fact that this Mercedes not running all that strong here today. None of them amongst the top 10. Your best running Mercedes at the moment is in 12th. The Mercedes has the legs on the BMW, and it has relatively equal number of the downforce. Really interesting to me that it's doing much worse, it seems, than your BMW is.
Yeah, move just in front. I think that was going. I think Matt Backham getting involved in the mix just to head behind him as well. Manea, Rodriguez, and also Riley Preston are getting in it amongst it as well as they head out of the turn 8 and onto the backstraight again. Looks to me as if it's going to be, I think, looking at the order they're in, it's Manea that's now at the head of that pack. But here comes, I think, looks to me Riley Preston. It's not Riley Preston, sorry, in one of the McLaren. Sorry, it's
Dave Geelink.
Dave Geelink, so thank you for that. So it's Dave Geelink side by side with Manea. This is over, I think, 4th or 5th position down towards the chicane. Manea has the inside line. We know how good the McLaren is if it's got the outside grip. It gets around and tags Manea around and he goes. Manea off into the gravel. Rodriguez, several cars steering past. We're going to have to get a replay of that because that was a tricky one. We talked about the outside pass on that as they come into the chicane. Just looked to me as though, as I watched the replay again myself, Geelink goes a little bit too hot into turn 10B, and yeah, unfortunately, I have to throw the blame 100% on Geelink on that one.
Yeah, I'm the exact opposite. I think Manea tried to squeeze Geelink way too much. Geelink was well alongside after the first part of the chicane, and the thing is to note is if you can hold the outside of the first part of the chicane, you have the inside for the second part of the chicane, excuse me. Geelink was there. I think that's Manea's faulty 100%, and he just turned himself around. Especially in a field like this, as stacked up as it is.
Sure, okay. I mean, my personal view as I looked at that was it looked to me as if Geelink dived a bit too quickly for the apex of turn 10B, but, and of course, people will call that a racing incident. We'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, good battle going on between Ricardo Silva and Timo Ivonen. Silva in the Audi versus Ivonen in the number 7 McLaren. They've also got in the mix just behind them Jody Tarquin's Mercedes, Isaac Price and Zach Thomas for company. So this quintet are going to charge down the back straight all together. It's Audi, McLaren, Mercedes, BMW and then Audi. So 4 different manufacturers all on the line, one after the other. Back down towards the complex, you see Ivonen trying to force a mistake from Ricardo Silva here, but they're also checking up in front because they're now tagging onto the back of the next field in front of them that's being comprised by Dave Geelink. There's also Riley Preston and Adikoba Lopez in number 3 also in the mix there too. We're getting up towards half distance in this 40-minute race then, so they charge into turn 1 just to take stock of the order. Frederick Rasmussen has checked out by 1.9 seconds in the lead from Dennis Grabowski in the McLaren in 2nd place. Miko Melkilla is now up to 3rd place after the Ricardo Castroliodio had his problems earlier on and spun down towards the bottom of the top 20. Matt back and forth from Dave Geelink leading this massive train of cars in 5th, followed by Riley Preston, Adikoba Lopez, Ricardo Silva, Timo Ivonen and Jody Tarquin rounding out the top 10 with Isaac Price just on the fringes in P11. So it looks as though at the moment, Randy, the top 4 or 5 started to make their early break now as we get to this point in the race, the midway point. These guys for 5th now are sort of, again, still holding each other up and not realising that they potentially have to work together, especially on straights like here down towards turn 10A and turn B, because if they don't, again, losing time and those front runners are just going to start to run away and just dominate this race up ahead.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't think the domination is done just quite yet. Frederick Rasmussen, as quick as he's been the last couple of laps, Dennis Grabowski behind has been reeling him in. It was 1.9 seconds to gap last time around. They come across the stripe. This time it comes down to 1.5. So Fred isn't out of the woods just yet. Dennis is going mighty quick in that McLaren behind. And Fred is going to have to work hard here. As right now we're on board with the number 6 machine of Joni Takinen. And remember, pit stops still have to happen here, so that could shuffle the field up again as well. Remember, you're only taking fuel, but if people overfill, they could fall down the order, and if you underfill, that could see you come down pit road again. Little mistake like that. But right now, I think Fred, he looks strong at the moment, but Dennis is almost certainly looking stronger.
You need to keep on watching this battle that's going on for 5th position, because Dave Geeling is almost becoming sort of an inadvertent sort of cork in the bottle here, because he was challenged down into the chicane by Riley Preston, almost gave up P5, but he managed to hold on defensively, and Adi Cobo-Lopez also trying to get himself into the mix at that point as well. So looking at the rear cam, you can see the number 17 Audi trying to monster the back of this McLaren as they head onto the back straight once again. We're on lap 15 of this race, of this 40-minute race. Charging down underneath the Mazda bridge and over the crest of the hill, and they'll head down towards turn 10A and turn B. Incredibly tricky braking zone as you head downhill here. You can probably brake a little bit later than you think down here. Here comes Preston trying to get to the inside before you get to the braking zone itself. Preston tries again for the second time. This time Geeling gives him the room. He's smart about it and thinks, you know what, this time you've earned that. There you go. But he also opens the door up for Adi Cobo-Lopez to get through. So that's now 2 positions lost in the space of 2 corners. Preston now has a clear track in P5 as the pit stops begin in earnest.
Timo Evenen is in the pits, as well as Ricardo Silva, and we guesstimated around lap 18. But the thing to note is that the main pit strategy question for these guys is just getting yourself out of traffic at the right time. So coming down early at this point, especially these guys that were in amongst that huge gaggle of cars, yeah, coming down early may be seen as a bad thing, but coming down like this now, you get yourself out of the traffic, could get yourself some clean laps depending on where you come out.
Very true. And of course the main question is, when are our leaders going to start to make their trips to pit road? We said it, we're anticipating around about lap 18, depending on how well they've been on the fuel. Looking at the lap times last time around, Frederick Rasmussen did a 1:18.3. You compare that to Grabowski's time, 1:18.5. So we got the gap back out to just about 1.7 seconds between the top two. Melchila is a further around 5 seconds away, and he's lapping at exactly the same pace it seems as Matt Backham, who's doing a stellar job in 4th position in the BMW. Watching our leaders now, does he head to pit lane? No, he continues to stay to the left and continues on, as does Grabowski, as does Melchila, who, no, he carries on. I thought he was going to pit lane, he's stuck to the right, but doesn't pit in. Backham goes through, Preston doesn't pit, Cobo-Lopez does though. Adi Cobo-Lopez getting himself out of the traffic from what was 6th position. So he brings the number 3 Audi onto pit lane, hits the speed limiter. Remember, these guys are only going for fuel, not tyres. They can last the 40
We had an incident on the pit lane. The number 19 machine, Juan Antonio Barber Bermudez, as he was coming down on the pit road, and this pit road entry is very tricky here at Road Atlanta. He just tried to push it way too hot, caught the wall on the right, then hit the wall on the left. That's a big mistake in this series, and you know, sometimes, you know, you definitely want to get as much time as you can entering the pits, but oftentimes it can just be beneficial just to pace yourself a little bit to make sure that doesn't happen.
Oh dear, that's an embarrassing mistake to make, but even so, he'll try and recover and make something of that race. I was about to mention that Andrea Rodriguez is also making his pit stop, and he's dropped down the order. Well, he came across in 14th, so nothing really changing there. Leaders are now already back down towards the end of another lap, so we'll have to see if they start to hold right towards pit lane. Here comes Frederick Rasmussen out of turn 10 and 10B. He does hit pit lane, so race leader Frederick Rasmussen into pit lane from the head of the race.
Dennis goes again.
He does. Grabowski stays on. Melchila stays on, as does Backham. So the rest of the top 5 not coming in at this point in time. Preston also elects to continue. So Rasmussen, he won't be really being undercut, but even so, he's going to try and get the pit stop done and just try and get a very quick outlap from the pits to try and judge it better than everyone else. But potentially, he's got to be careful he doesn't end up getting out with a lot of traffic around him, especially as the pit stops have started in earnest.
By the looks of it, he's going to have pretty much clean track after this pit stop. The thing to note is Dennis did this last week, and Dennis actually almost spins coming through your S's here, coming out of the S's. He was very loose, went across the grass, may have caught himself a slowdown with that, so that's going to give a huge advantage to Frederick. As I was just about to say, Dennis did the same thing last week, went an extra lap, and that could have been a big benefit to him last week. It didn't quite work out. This time they're much closer. Dennis might have been able to make that fuel advantage work, but I think after that mistake on the tail end of the S's, that almost certainly is a nail in the coffin for Dennis. He's going to have to do it just in pace on the track, as Fred's already back out and running.
So it was very much a Scandinavian flick sort of move there from Grabowski. Didn't really mean it, but it was certainly quite stylish, if not a little bit sort of time wasting as well. Of course, inadvertently didn't mean to do it, but even so. Grabowski then heads out of turn A and 10B. He does not pit, so he carries on for another lap. He feels confident to carry on. Melchila does, though, from what is P2, as does Matt Backham. He's really charging in the BMW. Don't make the same mistake that the other chap in the BMW, Juan Antonio Barber Bermudez, did, which he doesn't, thankfully. Here goes the rest of the order. Pass as they continue on. Now then, where's Rasmussen? He's now ready through 10A and 10B. He should easily leapfrog these guys in front. The question now is Grabowski going to make a pit stop anytime soon as he heads up towards the top of the S's? Now, it seems to be, what can you do to try and extend the gap a little bit further? The gap between him as they come across the line, it seems to be 28 seconds, which I don't think, Randy, is going to be enough to retain the advantage, particularly with that mistake earlier on.
That was a 3-second mistake, and that's, I mean, just to put it into context, the people that are entering pit lane are doing basically the same laps that Dennis did when he made that mistake. So that was a pretty costly mistake. But Dennis going these extra laps over Fred means that Dennis is going to have to take less fuel on. As Coda Lopez now, big fight down here, somewhere around 15th. Yeah, then a huge gaggle of what mostly seems like Audis as well. The Mercedes, and Andrew Rodriguez goes off, manages to keep it just out of the wall. No, I speak too soon. He gets into the tires. So big battles happening here amongst the mid-pack while we're still waiting for Grabowski to hit the pit road.
Yep, that's a fantastic battle.
And he goes again.
There he goes again, yeah. So Grabowski then looks as though he's still remaining confident. He doesn't want to pit just yet. He's going to be one of the last to make a stop then. So the next car we're waiting for to come across the line then. Another car exiting pit lane as well. So Grabowski goes on to lap 20 of this iRacing Blancpain Sprint Series second round of Season 4 here for 2016. Geelink now is up into P2. Riley Preston's in, as is Isaac Price and Zach Thomas. These three have been pretty much almost joined in the hip all race so far. These have really been battling away pretty strong. Rasmussen charges past and he'll be up now to what looks to be, that'll be P3 now. Only ones left to pit in front of him here are going to be Dave Geelink and Grabowski. The gap is now 28.1 seconds, and you have to say, with a pace like this and with as much clear track as he has, I think it's almost, and I say the word almost safe to say, Randy, that right now Rasmussen, it could be de facto leader again.
I think it's almost certain that Fred will come out with the lead. The main question mark is just how much fuel is Dennis going to have to take. If he's able to go around another lap, he's going to have a significant advantage in terms of the pit stop just based on how much fuel he's able to take on, or how much less fuel he'll have to take on. We're talking probably somewhere in the realm of about a gallon per lap here at Road Atlanta, maybe a little bit less, so 3 laps is very significant. Grabowski hits the pit lane now, though. It's going to be interesting to see how this strategy of his being able to save that fuel is actually going to pan out. If he comes out exactly 3 seconds behind Fred, he's going to be kicking himself for that mistake.
Dave Geelink also in from P2, and I have to say the ones that have really benefited, it looks as though potentially for some people pitting later has really paid off more than hampered them, because a couple of guys that have really benefited, Riley Preston up to P3, but also Team Evans up there as well, but also Isaac Price up to P4 in the BMW, as behind them looks to be, that to me looks like one of the Audis in the mix as well.
Away. Fred's in turn 1.
Yeah, Fred's in turn 1, which means that Rasmussen has overtaken the lead. And look at how close Grabowski is. So he was about a couple of seconds away. Now with the extra couple laps he's taken, he's actually gained about a second or so, I think, on this as well. So he's not lost too much time. So now the fight is on to the end of the race. It's now BMW versus McLaren. Who's got the strength in the second half of the race? It'll either be Rasmussen or Grabowski, unless either of them make a fatal mistake. But we'll have to wait until they come back around across the line again. But I have to say, impressively, the ones that really have taken advantage of the pit stops here, Riley Preston up to P7, Isaac Price up to P8, Renz Brookman up to P9. Ones that have really lost out, well, Adi Coba Lopez has absolutely had a shocker, down to 17th. Alexander Menez down to P18. And in terms of Ricardo Castro-Diedo, after his earlier spin, he's only up to P15. And stuck behind at the moment, Joni Tarkkanen in the 6 Mercedes, and the number 8 Audi Abdelio Apachak. So winners and losers, but so far we could be getting a pretty tasty battle of the lead here. We know Grabowski's good in the straight line. The question is, how much of that can he use to reel in Rasmussen in the closing stages?
He's going to have to use all of it, and the thing is, like you said, both these guys are going to be perfect. As right now we're watching the 1 and the 28. This is Renz Brookman and Zach Thomas. Renz, one of those people who managed to work through the field with the pit stops, and Renz and Isaac have basically been following each other this entire race. They haven't really gotten overly racy with one another, haven't really pressured each other. They just sort of rode, and because of that, like you said, they were both able to pick up a lot of spots through that pit stop sequence. Both of them very smart drivers. Ren's one of the best GT drivers in the sim, and Isaac just one of the best drivers in the sim in general. But the gap out front is 1.3 seconds, and Dennis makes a mistake. Coming through the exit of the S's, he didn't spin, but he lost himself probably at least a second there, running over the curbs awful loose. That's going to give a huge advantage, I think, to Fred. We know that McLaren is quick in a straight line, but it doesn't often play nice with the tires. The BMW is slow in a straight line, usually one of the most consistent cars over the run. Dennis needs to push now, but does he have the car to do so?
It looks as though that turn 5 is becoming Dennis Grabowski's bogey corner, because that's a couple of times now he's made mistakes and run a little bit wide. So meanwhile Rasmussen is the one that's really just stayed at cool, calm and collected. He's looking to try and make it a second victory in a row here, of course, after he won the season opener at the Nürburgring. Heading on to lap 23 now here at Road Atlanta. Of course, not the only racing we've got this weekend. We've got the Petit Le Mans that's happening tomorrow. 10 hours of sim racing that's going on. Continuing battle that still continues to rage. We've got Brookman now defending from Zach Thomas and the Audi behind him. That's over P9. Also now here comes Ricardo Silva looking to try and go around the outside. It's a daring move if you want to try that one, Ricardo. But thankfully Zach Thomas holds on. He now defends, goes really hard to the inside. He's going to force Silva to take the long way around turn 1. If he's got the grip of the confidence, he may well get this one, you know. Here comes Silva in with number 28, trying to make, so 27, trying to make the move. They're still side by side up at the top of the hill, but Thomas has the inside line. This now brings Antti Pihala, who's had a pretty quiet race, up into P12 and also into the mix. It's a 3-way Audi fight for the final top 10 spot. It's a fantastic scrap, but it's a great defensive drive from Thomas. Silva tried, but Thomas had an answer for everything he threw at him.
Great moving there. And Antti Pihala, you say he's had a quiet race, but I think he's right now our biggest mover. Actually, the only other biggest mover has actually tied him in terms of spots gained. Started 20th, up to 12th here, and then running in right now 16th. Luigi Nespolino, 16th, or 24th up to 16th. So two of our big movers here moving themselves up amongst your top 15. And Antti Pihala, we know he's a masterclass GT driver. How's he going to be able to do as Dennis gets loose coming out of the chicane here? Going to give a little bit more time to Fred Rasmussen here as they come across that stripe. That gap, I think, has grown, and Dennis spins coming out of the almost spins coming out of the final corner. Dennis, I think, has that McLaren trimmed out to the max that he possibly can, and it's definitely hurting him here in the later stages of this race.
Yeah, this is possibly overkill of oversteer from Dennis Grabowski. He is losing time. May look spectacular, may look flamboyant, but he lost 1.3 seconds on that lap, to say the least. So he really did close in on that lap, but comparing the lap times, Rasmussen...
He has pace, sorry to interrupt. He only lost, I mean, that lap, he almost spun 2 different times, and he was only 4/10 off of Fred. I mean, that McLaren is quick. It's just not stable at all.
It's full marks of pushing, but again, flamboyance doesn't normally mean fast, so you have to wait on time for that one. Meanwhile, Miko Melkila holding a good vigil for 3rd place. Matt Backham has kept it with him there or thereabouts pretty much all race for 3rd and 4th position, so no change between those guys. Timo even has slotted himself up into P5 ahead of Dave Geeling, who is now at the moment sort of, he's almost becoming a bugbear for Riley Preston, because he's stuck behind him the whole race saying, do I have to stick behind this McLaren the entire way of the race, or can I finally find a way through? But we know exactly how evenly matched the McLaren and the Audi are. It's a case of if you can get the slipstream down the straight and also with the run down the hill that might help. Preston will close in now under brakes for the chicane at turn A and turn B. Turn A and turn B, I should say. Up the top of the hill. Isaac Price also watching on. Meanwhile, we have to look on board now with Riley Preston, watching the back of Dave Geeling's car, back onto the pit straight again. A little bit wide there from Preston as he touched the grass with 2 wheels on the outside. Now sweeping through turn 1. It's a brilliant corner if you can get the apex right, and it's got the setup in the car just set just so it can glide through that first corner. A little bit over the curve from Preston. Closes in a little more on Geeling as they now start to tumble down the hill through the fantastic winding S-bends up towards the top of the crest at turn 5. There's a lot of exit curve on here. Take too much, you can get yourself a slowdown penalty if you're not too careful, as Geeling may well have done. Here he comes to the outside. This is Preston's chance. He thinks, right, I've got to get it done now or never. Up towards turn 6. Does he go around the outside? Geeling does give him the room. Preston's got some fantastic bravery to try and stick it around here. He can pull it off at one of the moves of the race. No, it won't, because Preston gets tagged by Geeling. Oh, it could have been so good, but effectively it turns out so bad, and that could have been such a great move. Replay will be on the screens in a moment, I thought, on that one. And Geeling, kudos for staying on the inside, but Preston's so brave up until the last part as they came out of the corner.
That one's a little tough to say. Dave was there But Dave hit that curb hard, and once he hit that curb, that McLaren got really tight, I think. That car kind of bounced into Riley. I don't really think there's much fault you could put on either person. I just think that's hard racing, and sometimes that happens.
Right, the Red Spot TV commentary thing, I've said it's a racing incident, so we'll stick with that. So up now it's going to be Dave Geelink also getting to further battles, not content with battling with Riley Preston. Now he's in front of Rens Brookman, and that's over 7th and 8th now. The number 1 BMW hustling the number 2 McLaren. So Geelink in the second lap in a row has got another shooter to try and fend off. Also in the mix now, just behind them is the 28, that's Zach Thomas in the Audi. He's had a good run so far up in P9. Also Ricardo Silva and Antti Pihal, that he's two bosom Audi chums behind him, also in the mix for 10th and 11th. So this is the fight now going on for P7th, down to P11th. P11, I should say, as Brookman just breezes past him on the exit of the corner. So that's now a simple move, potentially showing Riley how it should be done.
Well, I mean, that BMW has all that downforce in the world compared to the Audi, so not surprised Ren's able to get that move done. But Dave's going to be fighting back here in that McLaren behind, and Ren's is going to have no one to draft with as we're quickly here reaching the final stage of this motor race. 5 minutes left to go here, so the handful of laps left, and Frederick off to a great lead here as they come down into the chicane. Is Dave going to be able to get the Ren's? Just almost, not quite. Ren's going to be able to hold on. Those brakes are great.
And that was so close. Again, you can see just how loose the McLaren is, but he got it way, way wild over the grass on the exit of the final corner. He's losing so much time, so much so that I think even Mika Merkilla may see that and think, hold on a minute here, I've got 3rd place, but if I keep on pushing, looks as though Dennis's car is struggling, I could be on for P2 here. So Mika Merkilla will see the proverbial carrot dangling in front of his nose and thinking, right, I've got a chance for P2 here. If I keep pushing, there's a chance I can get 1 step higher on the rostrum.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, Dennis really is struggling right now. Likely having that McLaren, like I said, all the way trimmed out, and that's going to make it fast, but it's going to make it a handful to deal with, and it'll make it really easy to torch those tires on that middle-engined British motor racing car. As like you said, Miko behind as well as Mac Backham. Mac's actually been quicker than Miko the past couple laps, so I think both of them likely smelling blood in the water of Dennis Grabowski.
A couple more drivers moving up through the order thanks to a couple of position changes. Timo Even now in P5 ahead of the BMW of Isaac Price. Good move from him. Started 12th up to P6. 14.7 seconds off the lead, but trying to chase down Timo Even at this point. The lap times last time around, actually Isaac Price getting 0.6 of a second on that lap. It was a 19.1 for Even compared to an 18.5. Isaac Price showing exactly why he is a world-class driver, so much so he does compete in the World Championship Grand Prix Series. I'm sure he will do tomorrow when the championship is back in action. Even so, back with Rens Brookman and Dave Geelink, as now Geelink now coming under attack from the outside of Zach Thomas in the Audi. Geelink just trying to squeeze him onto the outside. Oh, and Thomas gets put onto the grass. Now either that was oversteer, or Thomas goes spinning on the grass but comes back in front, and he's lost a whole bunch of places. And we have to look at a replay of that. I need to look at a replay to judge exactly who may have been at fault at that one. It did look as though that Geelink comes into the corner here. I'm watching here now. Either he oversteers. I think there may have been a small touch. Slightly tricky one to call. How do you see that one, Randy?
That one's another one that's really tough to call. That's maybe a little bit more on Dave, but at the same time, that Audi really did try to squeeze him. But at the same point, Dave really did miss the apex of turn 1 there by about half a car width. So that Audi should have had a little bit more room to play with. I think maybe that one's a little bit more on the fault of Dave.
So just a couple of minutes left to go in this race then. Dave Geelink, of course, is holding station in currently in 8th position. Now it's Ricardo Silva, the next challenge to try and get past the... Almost seems to be, we used to call this car the wall, because every time someone tries to pass it, they always tend to fail to pass. So it could be an intriguing part here. Maybe we should rename it Gandalf, one of the two. But even so, down towards the last couple of minutes in this second round of the iRacing Blancpain Sprint Series here at Road Atlanta, Fredrik Rasmussen is looking to make it 2 from 2 in the number 4 BMW. He's had a fantastic race after hitting the front early on. Onto lap 29 here at Road Atlanta, just north of Braselton, Georgia. Been a fantastic race for him. Grabowski has been very wild, so to speak, in terms of how the way he's thrown his McLaren all the way around this course, but now Killer just trying to close it a little bit more. We look at the lap times compared to the two, a 19.3 from Grabowski and 18.9 for Melkiller. Matt Backham also charging 19.0 for him, so pretty evenly matched for 3rd and 4th. whereas Grabowski is losing time, or not hand over fist, but he's certainly having sort of bites of his advantage being taken out of him pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, as we're going to actually get word. We're not quite sure whether or not this is going to be the white flag or not as they come across the stripe. I think Fred is just going to get it as the clock hits down 1:18, 1:17. I think this will indeed be the white flag lap here. Not quite sure the way he crossed the stripe. It could go either way, so we're going to have to wait to see, but I'm thinking this is the white flag lap here, Scott.
Yep, so that will mean then, for one more time around the 2.54 miles, 12 turns of Road Atlanta, Frederick Rasmussen will bring the BMW onto the pit straight. We'll keep an eye on the battles that are going on behind. What can Melchila do in third position? Meanwhile, he crossed the line in fact to get the perfect time, we think. So Isaac Price is still trying to chase down Timo Iivonen for P5. He will continue to press on. Last lap times around, this could be the battle to watch on the last lap. Iivonen with a 1:19.1. Isaac Price 18.8, and he's getting much closer. It's less than half a second. He's now right underneath the rear wing of the McLaren as they charge up through turns 2 and 3. This could be Isaac Price's chance to get himself into a top 5 place from 12th on the grid. Down the hill they come for the last time, up towards turn 5 at the crest of the hill, and Isaac Price is giving even the big hurry up through turn 5 again. Over the curbs they go, up towards turn 6. Meanwhile, our leader is now heading down the back straight for the last time. We'll get to the battle for 5th a little bit later on. There's some lap traffic in front, but Rasmussen did a fantastic job last time out at Nürburgring. He kicked off his iRacing Blancpain Sprint Series campaign
one more lap
the best possible way. That's actually going to be one more lap, in fact. So not white flag this time. We white flag this time around.
Timo pits. Timo pits.
Timo does indeed pit. So that's even, and then in the pits, and that's going to give 5th place on a plate to Isaac Price. It's a shame even has to pit, but maybe possibly a little bit low on fuel, we think, maybe, or just running out of tyres. But even so, Price will be on his own then in P5. Onto the back straights and up towards turns 5 and 6 for the last time comes Frederick Rasmussen. As I was mentioning, a fantastic run at the Nürburgring. Once he got himself in front, he was not really bested by anyone up back in Germany. Heads to Road Atlanta, and onto the back straight he comes. He has some lap traffic in front, but I'm pretty sure either he'll catch it or he'll dutifully move out of the way. They'll get the blue flags. Rasmussen surely is, even though it's early in the season, trying to stake his claim as potentially the champion for this season. As a couple of the cars move out of the way, good drive from both of them. Into the chicane for the last time. He's had pressure from the likes of Grabowski and also from Riccardo Castro-Nieto, but it's going to be 2 from 2 in the Blancpain Sprint Series for Frederick Rasmussen. Out of the final corner, lights flashing in celebration. Rasmussen wins round 2 at Atlanta in fine style. 2nd place, a very wild drive from Dennis Grabowski. He gets a fantastic run. Mika Melchila, Matt Backham, 3rd and 4th together across the line, separated by just under 0.3 of a second. But Melchila gets the final podium spot from Backham in 4th. Isaac Price, what a drive from 12th position on the grid to get to 5th. Dave Geeling, after all his antics, he's in 6th position. Then Ricardo Silva across the line, just Antti Pihala, Zach Thomas and Joni Tarkkanen rounds out the top 10. As for Riccardo Castro-Nieto, he does struggle back home into P11. And I have to say, Randy, I think we predicted that race was going to be an absolute cracker. I think certainly with the talent we had, that lived up to it and some.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, what a second race of the championship this has been. And this race, I think, was a lot faster than a lot of people realize. We saw a lot of people under Phil who who don't usually make those mistakes. People like Rens Broekman and Timo Iivonen, those are experienced guys. They don't underfill their cars normally. I think Fred, with his pace, I think he stretched this an extra lap from what everyone else expected.
Right, we'll have the final results come up on your screen in just a moment's time, and to see exactly who came where. Frederick Rasmussen again picking up the fantastic victory once again. 6.4 seconds was the winning margin from Dennis Grabowski. Then it's Mika Melchila just holding on to the final podium spot from Matt Backham in 4th. Isaac Price goes from 12th to 5th to show why he's world championship standard. And also Dave Geeling in 6th position. Ricardo Silva 7th. Antti Pihala 8th. Zach Thomas 9th. And Joni Tarkkanen rounding out the top 10. Ricardo Castro-Nieto battles back to 11th place after starting on pole. Then the rookie Espelino, Daniel Pachak, Ricardo Ferreira and Andrea Rodriguez only finishes a lowly 15th. The rest of the finishers will scroll through as well. A couple of other drivers that finished down the order. Andy Coba Lopez wouldn't see the flag, unfortunately. Neither would Alexander Manea. He was a lap down also as well. Riley Preston way down the order in 17th, and Renz Brookman down in 18th place as well in the mix. And wow, what a race that was. And I think going forward to the next round, Rasmussen really is the man on form. He's going to try and make the hat-trick if he heads to Donington. Surely he's the favourite for victory if the car works in his favour.
Well, I mean, you say if the car works in his favor, but I mean, the thing is what car is he going to drive? He drove the McLaren last week at the Nürburgring. He took out the BMW today. I actually expected the BMW to be the weaker car, but Fred drove masterfully to bring that home to the end, especially with the pace Dennis was showing before that McLaren eventually just dropped off. So, I mean, I think Fred should just pull out the ultimate audible, come out with that Ford GT next week.
You read my mind. I think surely Ford GT is just see if he can prove to win anything. I think if he can do 5 races in a row with the 5 different manufacturers, that probably makes him one of the best GT3 drivers out there, I think, in my opinion. Right, let's bring one of our drivers from the race. Of course, a fantastic run from 4th place Matt Backham in the number 5 BMW, and Matt joins us now. Matt, brilliant race for you. We know how quick you are. A fantastic drive to 4th. Just missed out on the podium in the end, but that looked as though it was an enjoyable evening's racing in that number 5 Commander BMW.
Yeah, the racing was definitely great. It's always nice to race with such a strong field, and I'm just happy to finish, honestly, because looking at some of the things that happened this race, it could have gone wrong in many areas.
Was that really your strategy in that race? Sort of basically, to a certain extent, just try and keep quiet, keep out of trouble, and let the other cars around you sort of make the mistakes?
Well, you're kind of forced to do that in a BMW, because there really isn't any way to pass. I went for a pretty risky move on Dave in the SS, which worked out, but if there's no mistake in front of you, you can't really pass. So I was kind of forced to do it. I was hoping to get a few spots in the start, but sadly that didn't happen.
So fantastic. Moving forward then to the next couple of rounds, Donington coming up next. I guess we can ask if we expect to see you there, and if so, how do you expect to fare on a circuit that's as winding and as sweeping and not too dissimilar to a circuit like this at Road Atlanta?
Honestly, I can't really tell you. I have never driven around Donington, and to add to that, I'm not going to be home for the next 2 weeks, so I definitely won't be racing.
Ah, shame. But of course, we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time, I'm sure. But even so, 4th place is a fantastic drive. Randy, any questions for Mac at all before we let him go?
You lot racing tomorrow?
Yeah, we are.
What are you running in?
Same car as I am in now.
I told you someone would use it for Petit Le Mans practice. There we go. So, excellent stuff. Well, thanks so much, Mac. Best of luck for tomorrow, of course, to Petit Le Mans, and hopefully you can bring home a strong result for Coanda.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Excellent stuff. And of course, we have to talk about Randy, of course, as we close off the broadcast here. Of course, a couple of things. Of course, what's coming up this weekend, it is simply a bumper weekend for Racesport TV, because not only do we have the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series, the following round for that coming up this weekend. Of course, that is going to see them racing this weekend at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit where we had our first round. But also, along with that, we have the big ones, as we had 10 hours worth of sim racing, the Petit Le Mans, Road Atlanta. We suspect some of the drivers that were here tonight were using it as pretty much a warm-up for some extra track time before the race. That's going to be cracking, isn't it? Effectively, there's going to be some top teams, some top drivers, all bidding to try and win one of the best endurance races out there in iRacing and in sim racing overall.
Yeah, I mean, it's this week is going to be absolutely immense. I mean, we have, like you said, WC GPS tomorrow. We have the Petit Le Mans tomorrow. We have, Tuesday we get into the second to last race of your NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, and then on that next Saturday, the Blancpain GT World Championship Series comes back as well, running at Imola. And I mean, so you really have all 3 championships, and I think all 3 championships are the closest in iRacing history. And I mean, in each, you have 2 people that can win in WC GPS between Gregor and Martin. You have Peak, where it could either be Alfala or Sturgios. And then there's 5 cars within about 4 points of each other in Blancpain. So this next week is going to be a lot of interesting stuff to watch in terms of sim racing broadcasting.
Absolutely, couldn't have said it better myself. So tune in tomorrow then, of course, for the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series from Nürburgring. And then from there, of course, you can also watch, if you want to, almost at the same time, you can choose either World Championship Grand Prix Series or the Petit Le Mans from Road Atlanta. And of course, you get you to choose either endurance racing or Grand Prix racing at its absolute finest on iRacing Live and RaceBot TV. One more quick thing to mention, we have to say a big shout out, of course, to our fearless leader at RaceBot, Will Vincent. He braved the shave in terms of he's actually shaven his head to raise money for cancer, so that's absolutely fantastic. Well done, Will. We salute you, sir, from all of us here at RaceBot, of course. And that's where we're going to round out. Thanks so much for watching. We'll be back next week, same time, for round 3 at Donington Park. But from myself, Scott Woodwiss, from Rally Chenworth, and from Hugo Luis on cameras, thanks for watching, and tune in, of course, over the weekend for more action from RaceBot TV on iRacing Live. Good night.